Hey, everybody. Welcome to Lombardi Time Brews Live, where I'm your host, John Delray. Today, reacting to round one of the NFL draft, what happened with Jordan Morgan and the Green Bay Packers, and then also looking a little bit ahead to round two. And then, of course, if there's anybody here, we'll take some questions and everything of the like. But did have some extra time this afternoon, so thought I would hop on here and at least talk a little bit before the watch party for rounds 2 and 3 gets ramped up. Look, I was pretty open last night on the watch party, and I've been open about what I wanted and what I didn't want in the early portions of this draft, right? I think anyone who's been watching this channel is relatively familiar with, yes, I was a Cooper DeJean fan. And yeah, the Packers passed on him. He's still out there just chilling, waiting to be picked. And what I really, really did not want a tackle who was bound to redshirt, someone who is viewed as a little bit more developmental, someone who's going to have to take some time to play. If they were going to go O-line, I wanted it to be someone who's actually going to play right away. And it certainly does look like that's what they got in the form of Jordan Morgan. One other point that I know is just out there that people really want to know about is why didn't Cooper DeJean get picked in round one? Like PFF even had him ranked at number 8. What? Well, I think it's because the entire NFL just kind of spoke loudly and said, we view him as a safety. And safety is so incredibly devalued right now in the NFL outside of like Xavier McKinney that it was just not the positional value that many people expected that it would. With that being said, it is entirely possible that he's going to go very, very early here in round 2. So I want to spend a little bit of time talking about Jordan Morgan, talking a little bit about what might be on the slate for tonight. It is important to note that just like within the last half hour or so, there's been kind of increasing amount of rumors, some of them more national than local, that Green Bay is actively trying to move up to the tip top of round 2, potentially to nab someone else. And so I'll go over a couple of trade scenarios that I've worked up as well. So hello to the couple of people that are out there. Hello, Chris. Hello, David. Happy Friday to you both. But in terms of Jordan Morgan, what are we getting in him? That guy right there. First of all, it's been noted that he has beautiful eyes. So if that's of interest to you, there's that. But basically, he's 6'5", 311 pounds. 100% of his snaps in college came at offensive tackle. A couple like inline tight end, like special packages, but like the dude was a tackle in college. Still, though, he was projected to be one of the most versatile offensive linemen in this entire draft, given both his size and his strengths. In regards to size, you might notice there that arm length, 32.875 inches. It is underneath the Packers' typical threshold of where they like their tackles to be at 33 inches plus. However, Gutekunst in his presser last night did note that what Morgan lacks in that tiny little bit of arm length, he seems to make up in agility. And Gutekunst was very open about the fact that he believes that Morgan is going to compete at 4 different spots on the offensive line, which makes him sound incredibly Packersy. A few other notes about him. Per PFF, he was top 15 amongst all tackles last year in pass blocking and run blocking. His pass block efficiency last year, 98.4. The year before, 97.8. And yes, there is a little injury history. I know some of you are probably thinking, well, that's why he got picked by the Packers right there. He got an injury here. He's going to fit right in. He's got a torn ACL. Well, okay, here's the deal with that. 2 years ago, yes, November of 2022, he tore his ACL. He missed the final 2 games of Arizona's season. But then he rehabbed all offseason, and he actually played in Arizona's season opener last year. Played the entire season healthy, actually, coming off of that ACL injury. And had a better year last year than he did the prior year leading up to that ACL injury, which can easily really be construed as 2 things. 1, he might be an incredibly hard worker, but then 2, you're also seeing signs of an ascending player to come back from that kind of injury and perform at a higher level. So I'll talk about Morgan a little bit more, but just to take this, William, hey, how you doing? When do you think Edgerrin Cooper will be picked? I mean, realistically, I hate to be so vague with this, but soon. Now that we're in round 2, a lot of teams aren't going to be worried about the positional value as much as they might have been in round 1. I do think, I'm going to talk about the next kind of like 9 guys that are on the Packer list, I think. to start round 2 in the event that they just stay put at number 9. Cooper could fall somewhere in there. Consensus does seem to be as though he is the number 1 off-ball linebacker in this draft. There's some that like Peyton Wilson a little bit better, but like overall consensus just does feel like Cooper. So I think it's going to be sooner rather than later. If Green Bay is going to take Cooper, it's probably going to have to be in the 41 range. I don't see him lasting all the way to 58. Martain, hey guys, 10 more new captains. High character, smart leader of men to go. This will be fun. Yeah, that's a note about Jordan Morgan as well. A 2-time captain. So I do hope that Captain Morgan becomes his full-blown nickname. So I know a lot of people surprised. I'm not going to lie. I was slightly deflated, partly because I just wanted DeJean so bad. But I understand Morgan. Like if you just listen to this profile, under 23 years old, position versatile. Experienced offensive lineman with over 30 career starts. Off the charts RAS. Gave up only 3 sacks and 30 pressures across over 800 pass blocking snaps in the last 2 years. 2-time team captain who's considered a gym rat and a leader in the locker room. Participated in the Senior Bowl, was considered by Jim Nagy, the director of the Senior Bowl, to be the most consistent player there. In fact, he never lost a one-on-one rep there. And even at Arizona, he was consistently left alone on his own island to block all by his lonesome. And he's got overall good size, but he's on the leaner side and more agile versus brutal. That's a Packers offensive lineman, like in a nutshell. So what they really think that they have here, why they would have picked him, is someone kind of in the Zach Tom mold, but yet I don't want to say superior athlete because their relative athletic scores were very similar, but a different kind of athlete and overall a more refined blocker than Tom was at this time. There are even a few other comps that make a lot of sense that we should be quite familiar with, such as like Elton Jenkins. I think it was Brett Coleman who last night on YouTube comped Jordan Morgan to Elton Jenkins. So it makes a lot of sense that this is where Green Bay is interested. Or even how about David Bakhtiari, right? In the way of, not complete comp, but in the way of a little bit leaner of a build at tackle, some similar size specs, and then very good / elite 10-yard and 20-yard split times. I mean, it does make a lot of sense. And that's kind of where we have arrived. And like, I understand that there's still some consternation out there about how he was going to be a round 2 selection. I could always get him at 41 or 58 and PFF's mock draft simulator and whatever, right? But I think this is one classic case of the NFL was obviously higher on a guy, certainly the Packers were, than the overall draft industry. It should be pointed out that like The Athletic had him in the mid-30s on their consensus board. Dane Brugler, who I quote a lot, who wrote The Beast, he had him as a late first, early second round pick, number 29 on his overall prospect list. So then 25 is not really that much of a reach. Even Bill Belichick last night on ESPN's telecast talked about how if Green Bay would have traded back, Jordan Morgan would not have been there. He was not going to escape round 1. And then today we learned from an interview that Jerry Jones did, Justice Mosqueda just reported this a little bit ago, that Jerry Jones is talking about how they were probably going to take Jordan Morgan, and he was under consideration even as the Cowboys were moving around at the back end of round 1. So I did just want to read this too. This is from Brugler. 4-year starter at Arizona. Morgan was a constant at left tackle and offensive coordinator, Brendan Carroll's zone-based scheme. After Arizona won a combined 5 games during his first 3 seasons on campus, Morgan helped lead the program's turnaround in 2023. A quick-footed blocker, Morgan displays range and aggression in the run game and gets on top of rushers quickly in his jump sets when he uses well-timed hands. His struggles in pass pro come when he's over-aggressive with his kicks, and gets too far up the arc, which can create a 2-way go for rushers and open the door for inside counters. Overall, Morgan struggles to anchor mid-slide versus power, but he's a balanced mover who is well-schooled and physical in all phases. Though he can survive a tackle in the NFL, his skill set projects much better inside at guard, similar to Matthew Bergeron. And I think in terms of the Packers side of things, what they're going to do realistically, in my opinion, like I put on the community page in the channel, I think they're going to roll him out. I think he's going to compete at left tackle to start. Realistically, though, as the season really gets underway, he might take the right guard job from Sean Ryan so that they can keep the tackles at status quo. And then year 2, we might have a real tackle here, as Josh Myers is not re-signed next year because he's entering the last year of his deal, or other personnel changes occur, we could be looking at one of the starting tackles on the team if Hall of Fame caliber center Zach Tom does indeed kick inside. So in that way, it makes a ton of sense. And he's an O-lineman who's going to play right now, who can play right now, and should shore up one of the biggest needs on the team. And if you're looking for DeJean, Kool-Aid, Johnny Newton, they're all still there. Round 2 could be quite eventful. Solar Miner, I wanted OL and 2 linebackers first, 3 picks, 1 down, 2 to go. Yeah, and I don't know as if we'll see them double dip in round 2 at linebacker. I expect 2 linebackers to be taken in this draft, but I kind of have a feeling it's going to be like round 2 and then like round 6, like something like that, depending on how the board falls. But I fully feel like they'll be leaving. So leaving with 2, I should say. David, John, I need to admit I fell asleep listening last night on round 9. Good chance I can do better tonight. Silly aside, I liked the roundtable group, especially Claudia. Great discussion. Oh, thanks, David. It was a lot of fun. And then tonight, it's going to be kind of interesting because like tonight's a smaller group, like same guys, only a few of them could make it though. And then tomorrow, it's going to be just me and Claudia with maybe one of them popping in for just a tiny little stretch. But really, really glad you enjoyed it. William, another big, ugly DL player, would also be looking for Johnny Newton. There you go. That's your guy. I even like Ruke Ohorohoro. He would be great. Johnny Newton's definitely the top one available right now. The big knock on Johnny Newton is that he is a little undersized. Realistically, he's more of a 3 tech than a 1 tech. That means that he's not going to line up directly over the center. He's going to be more like a traditional 4-3 defensive tackle, which is kind of what they need right now. Or what they're going to line up, I should say. But that's kind of the knock, is that he doesn't have the size that's most desirable, but he does have a lot of the athletic traits. There have been rumors about the Packers were interested or considering him at the back end of round 1. So very well could be Johnny Newton if that's your flavor. Janelle, I liked the pick. They still need a couple more O-line picks. Yeah, and I think we're definitely going to get them. I really do. I could see 1 today and then 1 to 2 tomorrow. I still think they leave this draft with probably 3 offensive linemen, if not 4. And what positions the other ones come at very well could fall board dependent. You know, I don't know as if we're going to see them pick another true center. I don't think so, because I do think that they want to have flexibility with Elton Jenkins, who at one time was considered his best position would be center, or Zach Tom, or yeah, I think they do want that, but I very much agree we're going to see some more. Martin, I read somewhere Kool-Aid is falling because of injury. Totally possible. I mean, he's got a Jones fracture in his foot. And that's some scary business. Sometimes Jones fracture is one of those things where sometimes it heals perfectly fine. Johnny Newton, who I just spoke about, it's believed he may have something in the same kind of vein, or at least a similar offshoot type thing. But Jones fractures are scary because, from my understanding, they either totally heal or they're a recurring issue for a long time and it can come back. And yeah, for a corner, that's terrifying. And we saw how he tested this year while trying to come back from that foot injury. He had a RAS something like 7.5 off the top of my head, which is not, it's not bad. It's not terrible, but probably not as good as he would have done if he would have had a completely healthy foot. So now teams have to ask the question of, well, is your foot chronically like that? Because if so, then what are we really missing out on compared to how you just played? And it's a very worthwhile question. Steve, hello. I hope we draft the tight end from Ohio State because he looks like Johnny S.U. Oh, man. I can't say that I have looked at pictures of the Ohio State tight end. What is that, Stover? Is that the state tight end? I'm not going to lie to you. I haven't looked at tight ends that aren't going to play H-back a whole lot. So, gee, that's good to know. Thanks, Steve. So in terms of tonight, looking at prospects for this evening, realistically, let's just rattle off 9 that have been linked to the Packers somehow, or are Packers-y type fits, or even are just very fan popular ones. All right. So here's 9 guys, because they've picked 9 in round 2 as it stands right now. Cooper DeJean, Kool-Aid McKinstry, Javon Bullard, Jackson Powers Johnson, Johnny Newton, Edgerrin Cooper, Chris Jenkins, Max Melton, Marshawn Nealand. Frankly, there's not a ton wrong there. And that's not counting any wide receivers like Mitchell's still on the board. Maybe some team falls in love with Keon Coleman. It's not counting any other positions. Like if another quarterback goes somehow, like Rattler may sneak in here. So what I'm saying is like your absolute worst case scenario is there's 9 guys that have been somehow linked, commonly talked about, whatever. Maybe not Jackson Powers Johnson so much, but like still the idea remains that even if they stand pat at 9, you're looking at something realistically in that ballpark. At least a couple of those guys are going to be available to make the decision. However, if they did want to move up, though, this is using the Rich Hill trade chart. If they wanted to go from 41 up to the earlier part of the draft, which they might be doing, if they were to call up Washington, we'd be looking at 41 and 126 for Washington's 36. Mathematically on the chart, that's like perfect. Washington does have a bunch of picks already, though. And of course, it takes 2 to tango, but the math works out. Or if they want to get even higher and get up to 34 with New England, then we're looking at 41 and 91 for their 34 and 137. That's a big pill to swallow. Give away your top 2 and then a ladder of your 3, but still you're getting 34 and then a 4th rounder back from New England. That's going to give you almost anybody you want. Or rumor has it that Buffalo may be looking to trade out again and stockpile more picks, in which case the Packers could get all the way up to 33 if need be. Then you're probably looking at 41 and 91 for 33 and their late 5, like 163. So that's realistically kind of like what we're looking at here in terms of the value if the Packers are able to pull off a trade. Wisco, hey, Wisco Fanatics. I see it tonight. D-Bach and Elton Jenkins liked the pick. I did see that. I didn't crop it here, but like D-Bach put out this big congratulations to Jordan Morgan, told him to carry the G with pride, represent the community, town, etc. Well, I was really, really happy to see that. I like seeing former Packers reach out, right? And I got to say, for 2 guys who are pretty well acquainted with how the Packers like their O-linemen, because they're the shining examples, for them to sign off on the pick, yeah, that's a fairly decent vouch of confidence. I will take it. Jeff Johnson, hello from Rome, Italy. Hello to you, Jeff Johnson. I'm going international. Hello, glad you're here. Steve, was I disappointed in the first pick, and be honest? I'm not sure. I'm going to say a little deflated. Like, I think that that's a better word because, like, I get it. I very much understand it. And he is the type of O-lineman I was hoping for. If he goes out there and he starts at right guard or wins a tackle job and then Tom kicks inside, but I still don't think that's likely. Then great. They got a starter in round 1. Cool. Yeah, it may be, if he starts at right guard, it may be the least valuable starting offensive lineman on the line, because that's generally what right guard is schematically, and that kind of stings a little. But in year 2, then we could be talking about a totally different ballgame. Overall, I do like Morgan as a prospect. I am a little surprised that they were so confident in saying that he could continue to play tackle, because one of his weaknesses as a blocker is, as Brugler noted, like his kick slide. Sometimes he kicks too far out, and then stronger or longer defenders are able to get the inside corner on him and then kind of turn him. It's a weakness that did appear quite a few times. And that's also why, like, if you saw the ESPN telecast, that's why Belichick talked about needing to have more core strength, or, you know, just things of that nature. It's a very common theme in Morgan's profiles to say that, like, sometimes he slides out a little bit, sometimes he doesn't have enough strength, etc. You could move him to guard and perhaps, like, get rid of some of those while he's learning the better techniques with the Green Bay coaching staff, whatever. Still, though, with the way the board has fallen, yeah, I was a little deflated. I was hoping for DeJean. I want to see a Swiss Army knife in the defense. I haven't been quiet about that. But that could still happen. And so, no, I don't think I got much reason to be upset right now. Solar, my thinking is you don't get better by drafting the 10th best linebacker. Oh, sure. If you can get one of the top 3 and a top 5, and they won't be there in round 4, you can do the most, albeit keep your board. Yeah, part of it is just the value of linebacker, right? Like I know, like I think it was you that mentioned last night, like you're just not high on Quay. And I get that. I would also say too that like Quay, no matter what, he's firmly entrenched as a starter in this defense for the next couple of years. And he's probably going to be weak side. They've been very open about that, including Gutekunst at a press conference saying he's going to be the will linebacker. So there's that, right? Then you do have McDuffie, who is in line to be a starter right now, is entering the last year of his deal. So, yes, it's just, I understand your premise of if you can get the top ones, go get them, because what's the 10th one going to do for you? Well, you also only play so many. So, even if you're, and keep in mind their true base defense may be like more like 4-2-5 nickel than it actually would be a true 4-3. So then you're really only playing two on most snaps. How many you need? And I think that that's what kind of creeps in. That's why I'd say it's pretty likely we see one early-ish, and then we also see one like maybe Olafishio is available in round 6, someone that they can work with a little bit, and someone who can contribute on special teams right now. But then they could develop like an Isaiah McDuffie. Sword of the Spirit. Hello, Cheesehead, stopping in to say hi and then get educated. I'll take it. Well, thank you for being here. Steve, last year, Morgan, in 477 snaps, he only allowed 2 sacks. Yeah, only 3 sacks allowed over 800 pass blocking snaps last 2 years combined. Only 30 pressures to go along with that as well. A top 10 pass blocking tackle last year per PFF and top 15 run blocking. Like, you could do worse than that for sure. The Rigby Mordecai, hello. Hey, John. While Morgan wasn't necessarily the guy I wanted, I've learned to trust Goot. I'm ready to believe. Hey, and I think that that's a really good way to say it. He was not the number one person that I would have taken, but I totally see the rationale. I look forward to watching him play. He's very Packers. Yeah, right. Like I'm good with it. Let's move on. Brandy, hello. I think Morgan helps the run game between the tackles. Quite possibly. Yeah. It's kind of interesting because like some profiles revere him as a good run blocker, and then there's other profiles that say he doesn't have the strength to be a great run blocker. But one of the true highlights is like they've spread all over social since he was picked. You see like him in the screen game or him in space as almost like a lead blocker. And yeah, it's effective. Like that would be just fine. And so I very easily see the rationale of like put him at right guard and make him the pull guard. You could do some destruction like that for sure. William Ryan, couldn't Van Ness play the Mike linebacker? No, he's big, too big, frankly. Like he's very much in a 4-3. He's a defensive end. Mike right now, realistically, is Isaiah McDuffie. Eric Wilson has played Mike before, so like he started for Minnesota in that role in 2020. I think that that's probably your 2 starters is Quay at will and McDuffie at Mike. And then what they're really, truly lacking right now in that base form of 4-3 is Sam. A little bit bigger of a backer, someone who's going to run up with tight ends, someone who's going to be able to take on that extra blocker. That's truly what they're missing. And for that, you might have to look at like a Junior Colson instead of an Edgerrin Cooper. But again, that's only for their 4-3 base that they're going to trot out that many. And that's only going to be like league wide, it's like 20% of snaps. So, Steve, what pick surprised you in the first round? Pick surprised me in the first round. I mean, I gotta go like Penix at 8, right? Because I get it. Like they're even on their press conference, they said they're going to do the Green Bay way now, but the Green Bay way was to pick a 20-year-old Jordan Love with all the tools in the world and was nowhere near his ceiling, and then coach him up. Penix is 24 with 2 ACL injuries, and gotta wonder how close he is to his ceiling. So it was surprising. Brandy, wow, tons of players fell yesterday, lots of potential today. 1,000% agreed. Yeah, like the board for round 2 looks great. The Packers are going to walk out of this with multiple potential starters tonight, and that's fantastic. Bruce, I've learned to accept the unexpected and be excited about it. I've been wrong too many times in the past. Time to see what they see. Yeah. And from a traits perspective, like I said, like he's not the guy I would have picked, but from a traits perspective, I see it 100%. And that's really exciting. Mitch, in the fact that they didn't pick Newton tells me they are planning on extending Kenny Clark. Possible. And it was what, like probably like 2 months ago, month ago? I don't know. Time's a blur right now. But Tom Silverstein reported that they had approached Kenny Clark's people about a mega contract extension for Kenny Clark because he still is under 30, still is by a lot of metrics a top 10 defensive tackle in the league. So yeah, it can make some sense if it's on the shorter side of things. So yeah, your thinking may very well be correct there. At the same time, I think they were really high on Jordan Morgan, and we still might see Newton in round 2. We still might. My concern with D-line all along, or DT, I should say now, has just been like the numbers game, getting awfully full there. Because if Kobe Wooden is bulking up and going to play defensive tackle, plus Carl Brooks, plus Slayton, who does only have one more year on his contract, plus Kenny, plus Wyatt, you already got 5 defensive tackles on your team. That's a full room in a 4-3-D. So not a ton of room there. Plus you got Jonathan Ford. Can't forget about him if McKnight's here. Brandy, Cowboys and Lions colluding against the Packers makes me feel great, right? Yeah, wanted men for sure. Rigby, I mean, the way Goot was talking about Morgan made me believe that was the pick the whole time. Yeah, it was so confident the way that Goot was speaking, right? It just told me that this is a guy that once they came up, they didn't sit back and go, who should it be? Got to flip a coin here. No, it was like, oh, he's still there? Sprint it in. I think Morgan was very high up their board. What's going on? Focus. Jeff, with this bounty of picks, do you see us drafting a kicker in the later rounds? Well, technically speaking, right now, they still have 3 kickers on the roster. I mean, they got Anders Carlson, they signed Greg Joseph. They're supposedly going to be the competing, but then they still have that Podleski that they signed too. They still haven't cut him. He's still taking up a roster spot. So it's possible for sure. But I think they really want to give Carlson an even competition. And I'm not sure Gutekunst is going to spend capital 2 years in a row on it. But it wouldn't shock me if they throw a 7th rounder at it or something. Mitch, Packers have 4 picks today. Rest of the North, 2. I saw that. Yeah, that's insane. The rest of the NFC North is just throwing their picks around, and then Green Bay's like, all right, we'll take them all. That's fine. So, yeah, insane. Really, really cool. Steve, I think and believe in the 3rd round is where we trade down, not far, but we trade back. We will listen to calls. Yeah, see, like what I'm thinking right now is I would not be shocked at all if Green Bay does a jump from 41 up to 34, 35, 36, 37, something in that kind of ballpark. We know what the costs would be for that, right? But then in order to recoup something a little bit later, I could see them taking one of their 3rd rounders and falling back a little bit, maybe into round 4 for 2 more day 3 picks, something like that. I didn't work out all that math, but like that is very much a structure that I could see Gutekunst doing tonight, given how the board is at this point. Very, very possible that we could see that. I wouldn't be shocked at all by that. So, all right. Like I said, watch party tonight. And then watch party all day tomorrow, too. So do come join for that. I'll hang out for here for another minute, see if anybody's got any more questions. But hang out. It's a good time. And like I said, like I know some of you probably were hoping for a little bit more comment interaction last night. We had a full house last night. But as the draft goes on progressively, it's going to be fewer and fewer people there. So really hope you're there. Really hope to interact with you there. And let's have some fun. Late night alum, hello. Foolproof plan. Swap 7th round picks and take Mr. Relevant. It works out so often that Mr. Relevant is like at least a contributor, right? Sure, I'm down with it. Get rid of 255. Give it to him for free. I don't even know who's got a Relevant this year, but just switch back a couple picks. It's not even far away. Come on. And Commando, see you at the watch party. Yes, thank you. Thank you. I will see you there. It's nice to see you there last night. So, all right, everybody. I do believe I'm all caught up on the comments. So, hey. Jeff Johnson saying, are we ever bringing back the fullback position? Probably not in its traditional form, being like a true fullback. What most teams use right now is an H-back. Basically like a tight end fullback, like pseudo hybrid. a guy who can go line up inline tight end, but then also could kick back to where like the traditional fullback plays and has a lot of fullback-esque responsibilities. Last year, that was Josiah DeGuara. That's why I've talked about in a lot of the draft series leading up to this, and why I mentioned earlier that I haven't looked at a lot of tight ends that aren't H-backs, because what the Packers need is an H-back. They've got to replace DeGuara for that role in the offense. They don't have to, okay, maybe that's a little bit strong in language, but it is a role in Matt LaFleur's offense, and it would be surprising to see him completely depart from that and just forget it exists and write it out of the plan. So I have a feeling they're going to be looking for someone to occupy that H-back role, in which case that's your fullback. In terms of true fullback, they do have Henry Pearson on the roster right now, and I forget how they count him on the official roster, but like he's the closest thing that they've got right now to that H-back role, and I think he might even be a fullback on the roster, but he was a practice squad guy for most of last year, I do believe. So, all right, everybody, I will see you tonight. 6 o'clock Central is when the draft starts. That is when our draft party will start. Come on, hang out, ask away. Let's have some fun. But most of all, I do hope that you enjoy the draft. I'm incredibly thankful that I'm at least a small part of your Packers coverage. It means the world to me. So go have a great Friday, everybody. I will see you tonight. And as always,